So, namaste everybody, and welcome to another class of Yoga Vidya. Today, what we are going to do, we will have this class in two parts. First is the theory part, and then we'll have a discussion on the theory. As I have explained before in the introduction, first we will start with Mouna, the silence. Then we will look at how from silence comes thought. And then afterwards, how thought is engaged with what becomes our reality. And then we will do a regression on how each of those thoughts. Right now, I request everybody to mute their microphones so that the program becomes, our class becomes easy for everybody to hear. So then afterwards, when you regress is you go from outside to inside. The movement of thought from null to the outside world is from Mouna. There is a generation of spandana, and then you interact with the rest of the world. And then the regression is from the outside world, there is a movement that comes back into the silence. So we will look at the full cycle and see how we can maximize our ability to increase silence within the self. Now this is part of Dhyāna, that is the ability, what is popularly called meditation. So what we will start with the silence. We see, so everything starts from Brahman, which is the cognitive state where the consciousness is not moving. It is the state of null, the visceral cognitive state of null. Then there is a spandana. Spandana means an atemporal vibration. That is, it comes by itself. It does not need a stimulus. It comes from within by itself. So from within the Brahman, there is a generation of an atemporal vibration. From the atemporal vibration, there is a creation of an identity which seeks to manifest, which seeks to be identified or that it exists. So there is the first thing is the confirmation of existence. After the confirmation of existence happens, the identity then seeks to continue that confirmation, and so it builds a bond from which comes karma, and then the whole process of creation evolves. The entire thing about, the Brahman part is that there must be a physical manifestation of that, and that physical manifestation is what you find in the garbhagriha of a temple, or what is called the Kumbhaka, or a pot, inside of a pot, the place where there is no movement of any sort. Physically, that can be approximated to a silence, a point of silence. Now, silence is a physical state. When we are silent, we are physically silent. Brahman is much, much more than that. Because in physical silence, we continue to have a sense of identity. So when our asmitā or our sense of self is existing, it is very difficult for us to go beyond this state. So what we are doing is that we are going to take ourselves from the state of Brahman, experience a spandana, then look out first, and then we will regress from the outside way back to the inside. So suppose we are sitting in one point in a zone of silence, we are silent. What we will experience is a kind of a turbulence from within, from which there is an expression that comes out. That expression is spandana. From that spandana, your images will start coming to you. Where, suppose you are going to a place, suppose you are going for a wedding. Suddenly, from the spandana will come, what gift should I give? Otherwise, by itself, it has no, the need for a gift does not exist. From the need for a gift will come another thought. What about my cousin? What about my brother? What about my... So all kinds of things start coming out of that one thing that will create another spandana, from which another image will come, which will create another spandana, which will create another image. So from the Brahman comes Swapna Avastha, the creation of a dream. The dream gets created and it starts moving. For as long as you don't engage with that image, the image will become zero again. It will not exist any further. But the minute you engage your Purusha or your sense of identity with that image gets a life. And that life, that image will demand attention. Which means that you will have to, the self will have to engage with that image, and that image will create a good and a bad, and a right and a wrong, a like and a dislike. That is duality. That is raga and dvesha. When there is raga, it is you pull it towards yourself. When it dvesha, you push it away. This business of raga and dvesha creates karma, because there is movement, there is action. And so any entity, you then begin to have a debit and a credit with that particular entity, which you have to then, at some point in time, you have to reconcile. Now let's not get there, because we are talking about silence. What happens in that zone of silence? If you don't engage with those items, if you just say that this is all I need to do, and I'm going to engage only with this, and I'm not going to stop, I'm not going to engage with the others, first thing is it's very, very difficult. Because each of those images are coming from within, and they have been driven by a need that you have from within for an expression. So the Purusha that you have within yourself is seeking its own form of validation. So that Purusha needs to be ignored. And that starting point, that is what we are talking about today. In Dhyāna, the problem of the self is by the self. So the self, or you, or a sense of self, needs to be resolved by ourselves only. I'm sorry if this sounds very confusing. Everything is resident inside. The creation of the problem, the resolution of the problem are all resident inside. So we have the outward flowing sense of identity. It starts from null. Then the self comes out of that null because of spandana, and it seeks manifestation in the form of image within ourselves. That image, if we ignore it, it will go back into the state of null. But if you engage with it, what happens is it begins to explode into a different kind of a requirement, because you then need to seek, you need to engage with it. So which is why if you are, say, a chartered accountant, you have your GST problems. Okay. Now the thing is that very often you would have an accountant who will be reporting to you. For as long as you think you're saying that that accountant has to do the job, the amount of work that you will do will be much lower. But it does not stop the image from going. Has the GST for that particular product been paid? Has the reconciliation happened? This, that. Those images will keep playing. Suddenly, the person will come and say, sir or madam, this is the problem. And then that image gets a life. It's up to you to whether engage with it or you tell that other person, this is your job. When you say that is your job and you tell him, do it and come back to me, what happens? It is still, the image has not gone away. The image is just still moving. But you engaging with it has not happened. So this is essentially the way in which you reduce the number of images you interact with them. That is, those that you are in control with, you engage with it. If you are not, if you don't have to control it, if you are not if your requirement of engagement is not there, if you continue to control it or try to control it, then what is happening is your ability to get silence is going to be compromised. So you've got the image, you found out what you really need to do, you only do that, and then you let go what you don't need to do. This material manifestation and the material engagement with that image is called Annamayakosha. The material existence, anything that is built out of food, Annamaya. While you say it is only food, really if you take food itself, it is all part of the primordial elements, which is Panchabhuta. So expanding it makes more sense because then you are constantly engaged with the rest of the world. You're trying to look at every element as something that can create a karma which you don't really need to engage with. So if you don't need to engage with it, if you avoid it, what happens? The image will pass away. So here you have the first part of the silence. From the silence you have the image, you engage, you have a karma. If you don't engage and allow it to flow, you don't have karma. And that image will go back into the zone of silence. The second thing that you do when you're in Mouna, or when you try to keep your entire consciousness from creating images, is that you physically stop trying to manifest, in the sense that if you have to tell 10 words, if you tell 12 words, then you have created 2 more words than you need to. Obviously, if you can do Mouna in its true essence, that is complete silence, that's an achievement, but it is not possible in current circumstances at our stage of evolution. So the Annamayakosha is that where you try to look at any stimulus and say, do I need to engage with it? You engage with it if you need to. If you don't need to engage with it, you let it go. You don't have to push it away, because when you push it away, you're creating karma. Pushing it away or bringing it towards you is a creation of karma. That means there is a reconciliation requirement. What you do is you are like a lotus in a pond. It comes on you, it falls off. The flow is moving. You are looking at it as an outsider, not engaging with it. This is Annamayakosha. Let us now look at Pranamayakosha. We have continuously looked at prana as motility, that which motivates, makes things move. And prana essentially moves in our body through the nadis. What are these nadis? These nadis are channels of movement. As I have said before, we have every muscle group has got a tensor and a compressor. So when you pull like this, the compressor will compress, the tensor will tense. And when you let go, it goes back into neutral position. When your entire body is in a state of neutral position, the prana is flowing without any impediment. It's flowing unimpeded. This is the ideal state. Unfortunately, it does not work like that, because the minute the image goes, one of the parts, the brain somewhere, there's a trigger, and the trigger will stress, will bring some form of muscle groups under stress or under it is stress or tension, and that itself begins the engagement process. So, in order to get to a point of silence or Mouna in the Pranamayakosha, means you have to be very you have to ensure that your body is relaxed. But when your body is relaxed, your chitta is still moving, and the chitta will not allow you to completely relax, which is why pranayama becomes important. When we were practicing pranayama, we were saying that when you breathe in and breathe out, that zone between inhalation and exhalation is a small plateau called Kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is that zone where the pot is either full or empty. And when the pot is full or empty, then what we do is that there is no movement in that Kumbhaka point. And so you need to try and expand that range of Kumbhaka. When you do that, you can then increase the span of silence within prana. So when that happens, automatically the body's reaction mechanism starts slowing down, the heart rate starts slowing down, the amount of input that the amygdala gets reduces, the adrenaline to and the generation of adrenaline and cortisol reduces. When that happens, automatically each of the organs starts settling down into what is medically called homeostasis. That is, your blood pressure is at 120/80, your heart rate will be about 80 or less, and things like that. So things start slowly coming down, and then there is a further reduction as the homeostasis begins to go towards a simpler part. It becomes one where you have completely no problems in terms of flow of prana. So, and as we have said, prana is a flow or a vayu. So you have prana vayu, which is the inward energy which comes through the nostril. The air that comes in is the one that gives you the breath or the life. Prana vayu, apana vayu is from below the abdominal viscera. That is this bag that is there. It is below that. All the excretory, the outward flowing parts. That is vayu, which is the apana vayu. Vyana vayu is the aura that we all project when we are in the environment. Udana vayu is the communication part, when or what would one would easily call the branding part, how we represent ourselves to the environment. That is Udana vayu, and Samana vayu is the circulatory part, which is both the blood as well as nutrients. So all of this then starts slowly coming into harmony with each other. When these come into harmony, there is a drop in the amount of movement that happens of the chitta or consciousness. That increases the amount of silence within. So we have started Annamayakosha, Pranamayakosha. Manomayakosha is even more difficult, because in the environment that we are in, we are constantly getting smells. The skin is constantly taking touch, sight, sound. The most primordial of all this is the sense of smell. And that goes into the olfactory senses, which is somewhere at the top of your nasal cavity. behind which is the sphenoidal sinus. The sphenoidal sinus acts like a drum, which is the stimulus for touch, and the olfactory senses gives you the sense of smell. These are critical for the feeling of being alive. Obviously, after that, you have the sight and you have the sound. Bringing all this into control is incredibly difficult, because you have to learn to ignore that which need not be ignored. That means your filtration system has to be so acute, your awareness of prajna has to be so acute that when stimulus comes in, you should have the ability to say, this is not danger. Because as we know, we know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that first is the security part, which is the Mooladhara. Second is the social need, which is the Svadhisthana. Then societal needs, which is the Manipura. From here, everything is beyond the state of safety. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you're reducing your chakras. Each of your chakras are getting optimized. So the Mooladhara, the Svadhisthana, the Manipura, the Anahata, the Vishuddhi, the Agnya, and the Sahasrara. When you are bringing the whole system under control, the key is the safety part. Because if you bring your entire manas under control, the cognitive apparatus under control, and you start neutralizing it, if you don't understand what is safety and what is not safety, you begin to then get into a state where you can get into a dangerous situation which you will not be able to distinguish as unsafe. So this is a critical part, and so the Pranamayakosha, the Manomayakosha is a important, very, very important part which will require a lot of practice. You can practice this on a daily basis by distinguishing what is important and what is not important. So when your smell comes, if you know that, like for instance, I live in a house where there is a marriage hall close by. Now I should be able to know that when these people are throwing vessels here and there, it is not a dangerous situation. That is the way. That's a simple example I'm giving you. Similarly, suppose you are going in a car and somebody is blowing the horn. The first thing you need to recognize is whether you are in danger or not. And if you are not, instead of getting angry with the person, you have to ignore it. And that is difficult, because we are constantly conditioned to be into duality, like, dislike, good, bad. So you have to be able to let go that feeling that I am angry, or I am confused, I am upset. Those things you need to start bringing under control. This is what they call emotional intelligence. The ability to let go the feeling that I am in a position of, I'm under stress. So we've done Annamayakosha, Pranamayakosha, Manomayakosha. Fourth is Vijnanamayakosha. This is incredibly difficult, because our entire prajna, or the awareness of the self, is divided into two. One is Vijnana and the other one is Jnana. Now, Jnana will not come unless Vijnana is neutralized. Because the prajna has only one ability, either to move outside or to move inside. So what happens is your ability to neutralize or be in the situation without compromising the silence within is very difficult. So this will take time, and right now there's no sense in us working closer to this at this point of time, because to get here you will need to first get the other three under control. Last is the Anandamayakosha, which is the merger with the Brahman. So my recommendation to everyone here is that first practice silence in the physical silence state. Second, that is the Manomayakosha part. Second is try and practice the silence in the Kumbhaka state. Third is, if you are all going to temples, look at the silence in the Garbhagraha. Because Garbhagraha is the ultimate understanding of silence. So when you are in that state of silence that the Vigraha is in, if you keep on looking at it and trying to bring it within yourself, there will be a silence that happens within the self. Also, please practice pranayama and practice the generation of silence within the self. Another thing you can do is to not respond unless you actually need to respond. If something is happening and you are placid, you are observing. If a child is walking, instead of engaging with the child to beyond requirement, if it is your child, obviously you are engaged. You can't run away from it. If it is your neighbor's child, if you start going and playing with that child, you are creating an image for yourself. However, if you look at the child and see that the child is playing, and so long as the child is not unsafe, if you are allowing the child to play in the way it wants to, because there is somebody else who is directly responsible for the child, then what happens is you are providing a safety net for the child without actually engaging with the child. Now, this is a very important thing because it is not easy to accomplish. Trying not to be engaged beyond your requirements. Trying not to have raga dvesha. Raga is too much attachment, dvesha is too much rejection. Is difficult. I dislike. When you eat, if you eat food without too much, you allow your senses to experience everything without a like and a dislike. You are thereafter engaging a silence that is deep within yourself. And this is the thing that makes your dhyana much easier to accomplish. So because at the end of the day, dhyana is not rocket science. You will then you are in your current state, you are going from current state to the state of Brahman. That is the intent in terms of dhyana, because samadhi ultimately means you have to merge your silence into the silence of the Brahman. That's all there is. There is no rocket science here. The problem comes that the sense of self, the Purusha within, will not allow it to happen, because if it does, then its own existence is imperiled. This is why it becomes harder to neutralize it, and that neutralization has to be done in a very systematic manner by going from Annamayakosha to Pranamayakosha to Manomayakosha. If you can go up to Manomayakosha, then Vijnanamayakosha will slowly happen. Also, I haven't reached there, so I cannot really take you into Vijnanamayakosha unless I go there. But this is the theory. The fact remains that Annamayakosha, Pranamayakosha and Manomayakosha are some things that you need to practice on a daily basis. You have to practice yoga 24/7. It's not necessary that you should, drop everything and do this. No. You take small nuggets of silence. You try to achieve small nuggets of silence. Then you do two things. You do more nuggets of silence and try to increase the zone of silence in each nugget that you get in. And slowly that zone of silence will expand. And as the zone of silence expands, you will get better control over the silence in the Annamayakosha, Pranamayakosha and Manomayakosha. And when that happens, automatically the migration will go into the Vijnanamayakosha. And finally, when all your responsibilities are done, and you can sit in one place and totally merge with the Brahman and get into samadhi, you have already prepared the foundation, and then you go gently and in a very interesting in a very natural manner you achieve samadhi. So with this my class ends. I'm opening up the class for discussion. So please do start the questions. Please ask. Or if you have a point of view, please talk about it.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
This was something so amazing, and I was very excited to understand the way you coordinated or related this Maslow's need theory to our various koshas. That was amazing. So we can understand in a very nice way the needs theory of Maslow. But I didn't understand that Vijnanamaya that much.
Okay. I'll go back to Manomayakosha. Okay. Prajna. Prajna is what? Awareness. Okay. What Sri Krishna talks about in chapter 2 as Sthita Prajna is when your awareness of the self is continuous. It is a steady awareness of the self. Okay. That steady awareness of the self is one level below complete merger of the self with the Brahman or Paramartha Satya or whatever. Now, the awareness for us when we are living here is in two parts. One is outside, the movement from inside to outside, and the second one is inside to inside. Like we have said before, Brahman is the zone of silence. There is a spandana, a atemporal vibration is generated, and then it comes out as an identity. And that identity seeks expression. When that expression happens, it is always an outward flowing manifestation of identity. That so most of the time we are not looking at ourselves, we are looking at merely having other people tell us that we are this. For example, you would not, I Vishwanath, I'm a nobody unless somebody acknowledges that I'm Vishwanath. How do I know I'm Vishwanath? My parents told me I'm Vishwanath and I believed them. Am I Vishwanath? I don't know. But my parents have told me I'm Vishwanath, so I'm Vishwanath. All of you acknowledge me as Vishwanath. So there is reinforcement of that Vishwanath. Otherwise, Vishwanath is a nobody. It does not exist. Now the question is, if nobody acknowledges me as Vishwanath, what happens to Vishwanath? Vishwanath just goes back to the state of null, right? So all of our lives, we are looking outside, trying to get reinforcement of our identity. This is our weakness. Because without this, our existential relevance is threatened. We don't exist. So what we are doing continuously is to try and reinforce it. Every time we interact with something, we are building a network of identity positives. That is the biofeedback from each of this, even if it is your mobile phone. The biofeedback is telling you that you exist. In Vijnanamayakosha, you neutralize it. How do you neutralize it? By looking at everything and saying that everything is equal. That means sama darshana. This is what Sri Krishna talks about also throughout Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Sama darshana means you are equal to everything. That I am equal to a mobile phone. At this stage, you cannot experience your own equality with the mobile phone. So what happens? You consider the mobile phone to be a tool or subordinate to yourself. You consider somebody to be above your father, your grandfather, whatever, to be above yourself. So you have created a hierarchy within yourself. When you do Vijnanamayakosha, that hierarchy disappears. Because the prajna is now becoming jnana. It is looking at all states as equal. So what happens there is that there is no guna. It's called the nirarupa state. There is no rupa. Everything becomes the same. And in Anandamayakosha, it is nirguna state. There is no guna. So in a nirarupa state, the primordial existence of all material things is one of equality. There is no the form becomes diffused. There is no form, and you accept whatever that other entity gives to you or takes from you as without like or dislike. So the form as well as function both becomes diffused and it becomes equal to you. You don't look at something as some kind of with like dislike. There's no duality. So that is what Vijnanamayakosha essentially is, and it's very difficult unless you have practiced Annamayakosha, Pranamayakosha, and Manomayakosha. And in the case of yoga, you have to also practice yama and niyama. Why do you practice yama and niyama? In yama and niyama, you first practice harmonizing yourself with the environment so that the amount of dissonance you have with the environment is lower. Then within yourself, the way you process the information, you again harmonize that information. So that is a yama niyama are physical practices or intellectual practices which you engage in. But today our class is on Mouna, how to stay in the zone of silence. Obviously, yama and niyama are very important tools in becoming in practice of Mouna. So this is what Vijnanamayakosha is in a nutshell. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Very beautifully not only answered this, sir, but also the theory part which you explained. First time I thought of, or it will be wonderful to do manan on what you said, going the Mouna as per the koshas. Excellent, excellent. I really like this, the way you took it forward. Thank you so much.
Please practice.
Dhanyavad.
Please practice. Please practice.
Yes.
It's not that
Yes.
this class is not about theory alone. If you don't practice, I would love to have people reach samadhi ASAP. It is not enough to practice. It is not enough to understand the theory. It is important that you practice, because for as long as you don't practice, your need for a verification or confirmation of existence will continue to remain as an existence, as a requirement, until you can release the need, the attachment you have to various other things. Anybody else? There are so many in our class. Somebody can also talk about what they are. It doesn't have. You can have an opinion. It doesn't matter. Otherwise, how will we also learn? Yes, sir. Ramchandran, sir. Please do, sir. Ramchandran, sir. So unmute, sir. I think you need to unmute. Ramchandran, sir. Please unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Right. Now, I do meditation every day in the morning.
Yes, sir.
But one thing which I do as part of the meditation is I take a deep breath. And then I don't do any breathing, no exhalation, no inhalation, just for about 20 to 30 seconds.
Correct.
That gives an absolute stillness in the mind.
Correct.
That is your Mouna we're talking about.
That is called Antara Kumbhaka. See, there are two Kumbhakas you can do. Okay, when you breathe in, that is inhalation or puraka. Then when you have reached that part, the entire lung is full, and that fullness is called antara kumbhaka, the inside of the pot when it is full of prana. Then
Okay.
you exhale, and that is called rechaka. And when your lungs are empty and you hold the breath, that is called bahira kumbhaka, where the pot is empty. All the prana is out of the pot. Now, in this case, what happens is that when you bring all the air inside and you hold it in the pot, what you are doing is that one of the most important thing here is that it should be held without any stress. That is, if you're holding it physically and you're forcing yourself to hold it forcefully, you are creating karma because you're using your will to force the air into the pot. However, if you hold and then you are at peace and you just hold it this way without any stress, then there is no karma created. Then that when you hold it, then the entire system starts settling down, and that is a very good way to do pranayama. That is a kumbhaka. What you are doing is antara kumbhaka.
But is that the stillness which you get in the mind at that time?
Mm.
Is that the stillness which you are looking for as the ultimate thing?
Yes. So the thing is that the stillness that you are getting, the kumbhaka that you do is between inhalation and exhalation, and the gap between that between rechaka and puraka is the kumbhaka, and that is the point of that is the Brahman. That zone is very small, and for you to cognize it, you have to cognize it. Your prajna must focus on that stillness, and after that it must increase in duration, as well as between every kumbhaka you must be able to hit that zone all the time, and then it becomes a sutra, it becomes a string, and as the string increases there is greater integration into samadhi.
Okay. Right. Thank you. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, you're bang on. You're doing perfectly, and you can now try it even after breathing out.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So both of them, both those zones, from inhalation to exhalation, exhalation to inhalation, those zones of silence. Try to see, the thing is, the zone of silence by itself is valueless. Your awareness of the self, the prajna. So we need to distinguish between prajna and chitta. Chitta is the consciousness that is emanating from the self. It identifies each of these items. This. All of this is identified by the chitta. That is the self identifying something. Awareness is the looking of the self identifying these things. So the chitta is the postman. So what you are doing ultimately is trying to make the chitta into zero. When the chitta becomes zero, the purusha becomes zero. When purusha becomes zero, there is merger with the Brahman. It's very simple. And that is the plateau between inhalation, exhalation, exhalation, inhalation. It is also the same space that you get in a garbhagriha in a temple. That is why the garbhagriha exists. It is to tell you physically what is the state of the Brahman.
So what
Have I
I
answered?
understand is, yeah, you have answered my question. I have another question. Now, when
Yes,
I
sir.
do it when I do the exhalation and inhalation in a cyclic manner,
Yeah,
then that is when I should start expanding on the zone of silence. That's what you're
correct,
saying. Only then I come to
correct,
samadhi.
correct. Now the problem with that is when you start inhalation and exhalation and counting, what happens is that your chitta goes and starts paying attention to the inhalation and exhalation. So the awareness, the chitta starts driving the inhalation and exhalation. Your awareness starts looking at the chitta. So it's a very tricky thing, It's not that simple, because the prana will force you to pay attention to your state of existence, that I am alive. So you will have to actually allow the chitta to move in whichever way it wants to, and look at the chitta as an outsider. It's not easy. It's quite hard. So another thing is, when you do inhalation and exhalation, you must not force it. You must allow the diaphragm and the visceral, the abdominal viscera to be relaxed. And over time, slowly, the rhythm will come into this, and the calmness, the movement of the chitta will start reducing.
Thank you. That was very nice.
Okay, sir. Anybody else? Anybody else? Lata madam, Lakshmi madam.
Yes, sir.
Lakshmi madam. Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, my understanding, I just wanted to share, just to know if I understood it right. Basically, when you were talking about the koshas, one thing which struck me is, it is not, for example, the point about being devoid of raga dvesha. All these things, I'm trying to apply it to practical scenarios. I was thinking, while it may not be possible to do it externally, all these this awareness that you were talking about, I think has to be done only internally.
Correct.
Though externally we may be functioning in a certain way, internally we establish this fact that we maintain that detachment. Internally it's done, but outwardly so it helps us to deal with the situation outwardly also, and help us keep our inner balance at the same time.
It's not easy.
Not at all easy. Yes, sir. Not at all easy. Even the slightest insult which provokes us today, if we start thinking, if we start bringing in that detachment, especially the Manomayakosha, when you spoke about, we can bring control in our emotions and understand that we are part of a consciousness. This is not coming to me and he are one. If we start thinking like that, it dissolves the situation, but then only internally.
Correct.
Externally, we still have to act in a certain way.
No, you don't. You're forcing that is a choice you have. See, the thing is, this is what free will is all about. When once I start teaching, going back to the Bhagavad Gita thing, we will have a discussion on free will.
Yes, sir.
How free will is a mirage. The minute you engage with something, your identity, if it's very hard to dissociate your identity from the outcome. So that, like I said, there is an image which is flowing. The image will happen. It is happening. But for you to be able to disengage yourself from the process as well as the outcome is very difficult.
True, sir.
It's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy.
Correct.
There will be a small child, and the child will be eating cutely, and then you immediately will start getting engaged with that child. What has happened? Karma has started. You're engaging in karma.
Yes.
It is yourself which is getting engaged with that. There is a raga dvesha that is getting created.
Correct.
It's not easy.
Correct. Not at all easy, sir. But here again, I liked that point which you told, sir, about reducing your, for the want of a better word, for reducing the how do I put it across, sir? You told, no, sir, don't add on more and more responsibilities. I'm not getting the right word. Like, associate yourself only if it's absolutely necessary in various situations. I liked that point very much, sir, because that is actually helping us to reduce our interactions in daily lives and try to focus more on the spiritual part. Now, suppose we keep...
See, most of us are in grasthasrama. So the thing is that do only that which you control. Now the thing is that you have a role, a mother, a wife. I have a role as a father, a husband, whatever.
Yes.
What I need to do, I must do. Now, for example, my son is married. He's got a child. If I start going and poking, no, you should look after your child like this, do this. I'm being stupid. I'm still being engaged in something that I don't control. It is their child. Why should, if I start saying you should do this, you should do this, in the end, what has happened? I have not kept to my own zone of responsibility. I've
Correct.
started engaging with everybody else's zone of responsibility, which is ridiculous. In the end,
And
I
yet,
don't control the outcome at all.
no, sir. And yet, in this position, you are, in this example, you are also a loving grandfather to that child. Tomorrow, if that child falls sick, you are affected. If your son
No,
comes
that's the
and
point. That is what. That is where the problem starts. That is precisely the point I'm trying to make. You have to be looking at the grandchild with affect with what, it's not affection, with grace.
yes,
You have to be looking at the child with grace. You have to do your duty without the attachment. If you don't have to do the duty, don't do the duty. I told my children, I am not going to do babysitting for you. It's your baby. You want to go and do some work, you want to go and work in a company, you find a solution. I'm not going to do it.
is
Why?
that not a
Because
raga dvesha, sir? Then is it not a the
it's
raga?
not like that. I look at it like this. I am saying that your responsibilities are your responsibilities. I don't control the outcome of your child. Your child is your responsibility. If I start engaging in that responsibility, then afterwards I'm also becoming responsible for the outcome of the child.
So it's not a raga, sir, where you want to
No,
do this. Is it not like I like to now detach myself? I have done my responsibility. So I am bringing in that detachment by force. Is it not something I am doing, sir, there?
let me ask you a
Sorry, sir, I'm
question.
getting
Which
confused, so I'm
no,
asking.
no. I'm also thinking as because you are asking the question.
Huh. We
The
are,
issue
it's
here,
like,
no, it's a beautiful question. That when you are, let me rephrase the question. You are saying that in
yes.
Grahasthasrama, where does Grahasthasrama end and where does Vanaprasthasrama start?
Huh.
This is the question you are asking. Now the
Uh,
question,
yes, sir.
because only from Vanaprasthasrama you can go to Sannyasasrama.
Yes.
In the olden days, what would they do? They would walk away from the family.
Yes.
What is the meaning of Vanaprasthasrama? You have Vana means forest. They
Yes.
would at some point in say that we have already done our jobs and we are going. This is what happened at the end of Mahabharata.
Yes.
All of them, the Dhritarashtra and everybody said we are going, and then they went with Sanjaya into the
True.
forest.
True, sir.
Now that is Vanaprasthasrama. What did they do at that time? They left everything behind.
Yes.
Here, what is happening? You are still engaging with that family, with another family that is not your own. Actually, it is no longer your own.
Yes.
If you look at Vivaha Samskara, in
Yes.
Vivaha Samskara, the two of them become a couple, which is why in Tamil the sari that the girl wears is called a kura padave or a roof. She
Yes, sir.
starts her own home. She is not
Home.
supposed to be going to the boys' side home. She's supposed to
Yes.
start her own home. No, when
Yes.
you have her own home and you are saying that I will come and help you, I will do this, I will do this, it's stupid. You have already created a problem for which you have no answer.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So the question, in my view, is that you're not
Yes.
saying no to them. You by all means, please come visit
Huh.
me. We will spend some time together. Whenever you that affection is not lost.
Mm.
What I am letting go is the responsibility for that family. I'm saying you as a family, when you have got married, you have become an individual family.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I think what is where we get confused is that we try to think that attachment that we have for a child before marriage is the same attachment that must continue after marriage, which makes no sense.
Yes, sir.
So that is my point of view.
Yes. I get you, sir.
So,
No, I was only hinting at, you know what, sir? I was saying this process should not make us very dry and insensitive also, no, sir, at the same time. Now, you're
you're
getting
right.
my doubt.
You're 100% correct.
If we become too...
You're absolutely correct. You're
Yes.
100% correct. What you the quest it's like, you know, it's a very tricky situation. You have
Yes.
to be engaged, yet you have to be isolated.
Yes.
For that you have to that is why that Mrityunjaya japa is there, no? Trambake jame sugandhim pushtivartanam urvaruham bandhanan mrityurmukshamaptat. That is, you have to let go the attachment in the way that a cucumber falls off the stem. That is, your attachment is not just to death. Death is just a final this. Every detachment that you have is a death. So the thing is that your detachment has to be like, you know, the cucumber falls off because the stem dries up.
Yes.
So the cucumber, that attachment to that particular entity must be released, just as the stem will dry up, and
Got
the
it.
falling off becomes somewhere there is no pain to that person and to yourself.
So natural. It should be so
Yes,
natural.
correct,
Without binding in any way.
correct.
It happens. No means no. That kind of ease should be there in the...
Correct. There is no rancor. There is no, you know, sadness. Nothing. It's just
Yes.
going off. So what happens also is when you die,
Hmm.
there is no grief. Nobody is grieving because you've already slowly let go those attachments.
Got you, sir.
But if you don't do it, then you're stuck in the cycle of karma. The Maya is there. Maya is holding you in her grip.
Grip. We'll go again and again into so many births unnecessarily, doing the same old things. Got you,
Correct.
sir. Got you, sir.
That's
Yes.
what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Lata madam, I think you had said something. Lata Suresh. Lalita madam, you had something to say?
Who, me, sir? Yes.
Yes.
If I can add on to what the discussion was, I would like to share my experience. When my sons went away to study and later to make their own homes, it is natural as a mother that we feel, especially when when the daughter or son goes away to study and all, because that time they're not fully on their feet. We feel like that. Though he knew to cook, he knew to take care of himself very well, but even then we feel worried. So I didn't want to feel worried, but that used to what should I say, that used to keep coming up. Hope everything is fine, this way, that way. And those days we didn't have a mobile phone and all that. Calls used to be, we had to go through. It was a long this like a trunk call kind of thing. It was the stage next after trunk calls, but still STD, IST and all. And anyway, so coming to the point, everything, sir, it's not just letting go of the responsibilities that we can do it, because we want them to be independent. We want them, our children, to manage on their own. So we feel happy that they are able to do it. So that satisfaction is there. But, little things, as a mother, I'll tell you, when I had to keep uh, plates for meals, when I was keeping plates, when I had to keep 1 and 2 plates less than, we were staying always. I've been staying with we have all been staying together. once upon a time, there were 4 generations in the house. When I had to keep 1 or 2 plates less as my sons went out of home, it used to hurt, even that would bring, what should I say, such a neck में ना throat में एक pinch हो जाता है. You're almost on the verge of sort of not crying, but you miss so immensely. But what my father, when I mentioned to my father, we always used to discuss everything. So I was telling him, I'm finding it so difficult. Like when I'm looking up at the moon, I'm thinking, thank God, how lucky the moon is. The moon is looking after him there. And I can also look at the moon. We are sharing the moon. It was such a sentimental fool I was, but I used to think like that. So, and especially because we were in Chennai that time, and he was in IIT Mumbai. He had chosen, because he had got the rank within 100, then he can choose the IIT. And that those days in IIT, the leopards and tigers were more. We had heard how they had jumped on somebody
Lata
who
madam,
was
I think you
going on
need to move
cycle.
faster. Lata
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need,
yeah.
madam, you
Correct,
need to move
correct.
faster.
Yeah. Sorry,
Come to the
sorry
point.
for
Please
going
come to
down
the point. Yeah.
Yeah, the point is what my father told cured me and brought me to that balance within me. And that was, he said, see, we as parents have to be like the runway lights in the airport. The runway lights in the nights, especially in the night, they guide the aeroplane to land. Then you service and refill the plane, and then it has to take off. It cannot be staying in the airport all the time. And similarly, when he comes home, you charge him, you give him all the things that you need to do to make his stay fine. But at the same time, let go. Just be like the runway lights, being there but not clinging, being
Correct.
present at not engaged in so much that we can't. The runway lights don't go and embrace the or hug the cling to the airport and aeroplane and not let it fly off. No, they don't do that. So similarly, that, so every time I would just think of myself as a runway light and
Correct.
sort of, that example was beautiful. I've written something, so sometime I'll take out that poem and read out.
Okay.
But that was a beautiful, I think, tip to any parent or a grandparent, to be like a runway lights, being
Lata
there
madam,
for them when they need.
I'm going to ask
Yeah.
I need to ask Lata madam for her.
Yeah. I've
So we
finished
can go
my
forward.
point.
Yeah, thank you. Lata madam.
Sir, I'm good. It's been an interesting class, sir. I have no remarks. A lot of takeaway. Thank you.
Okay. So it's already 4:15 and 4:10. Okay. I'm going to, if there are any last comments, we will take those comments. Otherwise, we'll close the class. So, is there anybody who has anything to say? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the class today. And I too had a very interesting session. And I hope that you all had one too.